Chromosomes. Little strands of nucleic acids and proteins are the fundamental genetic instructions that tell us who we are at birth. Most people are born with 46 chromosomes, but each year in the United States, about 6,000 people are born with an extra chromosome, making them a person with Down syndrome. If you've ever encountered someone with Down syndrome, you know that they are some of the kindest, most joyful people you will ever meet. They truly have something extra. My name is Lisa Nichols, and I have spent the last 24 years as both the CEO of Technology Partners and as the mother to Allie. Allie has something extra in every sense of the word. I have been blessed to be by her side as she impacts everyone she meets. Through these two important roles as CEO and mother to Allie, I have witnessed countless life lessons that have fundamentally changed the way I look at the world. While you may not have an extra chromosome, every leader has something extra that defines who you are. Join me as I explore the something extra in leaders from all walks of life and discover how that difference in each of them has made a difference in their companies, their families, their communities, and in themselves. If you like this episode today, please go to Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen and leave us a 5-star rating. I'm grateful to have Jae Chung on the show today. Jae is a partner at Bespoke Compass. Well, Jae Chung, welcome to the Something Extra podcast. I am so delighted that you are making the time to join me today on the show.
I'm delighted too. Thank you for inviting me.
We're going to have a lot of fun. I believe when you moved to St. Louis in 2019, you moved with your wife, Grace, and your 3 children.
Yes.
And you were new to the area. And you met Dr. Tom Hill. Mm-hmm. You may have met him through Pastor Eric Lawson. I don't know that, but you met Dr. Tom Hill. And then Dr. Tom Hill said, Lisa, you need to meet Jae Chung. Mm-hmm. And then you came and sat down in my office and we had a wonderful conversation. And then you and I saw each other again recently at Dr. Hill's Eagle Summit. And I was so happy to reconnect with you there.
Me too. I remember that day, both days. It was very memorable. Yeah. Thank you for welcoming me into the Midwest area.
Yes. Well, we're so happy to have you here and we have so much to talk about. You have such an interesting background, Jae. You have a very interesting background. You've done multiple things in your career. Mm-hmm. I think you've traveled to over 40 different countries. That is incredible. Yes. So we have a lot to dig into, but I want you to take me back to growing up because I know you grew up in Seoul, South Korea. What was life like for you in South Korea?
I mean, I was young. So I was born there and was raised there till I was 10. And I came to the United States as a 11-year-old boy with my parents as an immigrant. So first 10 years of life, even if you lived anywhere else, you're just a child in some sense. So you're not an adult. So you experience the country from that point of view. I had lots of friends, just toys, running around. Didn't study much. I think I had a lot of fun playing in the playground until mom called me in to eat. And so it's a very typical life. I really didn't know Korea as a country. You don't think that way. I mean, obviously, everybody looked like me. And so there was a uniformity there and so on. But raised in a very loving family. Mom and dad were very good to me. My childhood memories filled with their memories of being kind and being a great example. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I grew up the same way, Jae, and I count my blessings every day for that because I know that's not always the case.
Right.
But, I know that I don't know when you did this, but I read something or I watched something. I can't remember, but I know you played the violin. You did judo. You were really good at math. I think your mom wanted you to be a doctor.
Yes, that was her prayer request for like 10 years, probably.
Yeah. And you didn't end up you ended up going to school, but
Mm,
you didn't become a doctor. But I wanted to ask you this. So you did when you were 11, you did your family did immigrate to the United States, and I think you settled in California.
mhm.
What was the precipice for that move? I assume it was your parents' jobs, but it could have been for another reason. I don't know what that reason was.
Yeah, it was really the driver was my mom. My mom became Christian through series of events, and most significant being her being diagnosed with a throat cancer in her throat. As a ex opera singer, that was devastating to lose a lot of her vocal ability, but to think that you're going to be, you know, your life is going to be cut short because of the cancer at such a young age was devastating for her. But long story short, she believes that her meeting Christ at the young age of 30 something, uh, Christ healed her. And through that experience, a person that was teaching, well, she was the choir director at Buddhist temple,
Mm-hmm.
most of her adult life. And then she becomes this champion of the gospel through meeting Christ in her own very unique way at the end of her, what could have been end of her life. And Christ heals her. And she comes home and says, hey, we got to go to church. We got to worship this God. I mean, it doesn't get it as any more dramatic than that,
That
a
is dramatic.
conversion story. And then a few months later, she says, family, we need to leave because she was very much persecuted for being a Christian now in a
Mhm.
family setting, rich with Buddhist culture and tradition, and her mother-in-law, father-in-law not being supportive at all. But just to give you a glimpse of it, burning Bible on Sundays in my house. And so my mom and dad decided we're going to go. And to this day, her words ring in my ear. She says, we're going to go to a country where it's free to worship Jesus. And so
Oh,
that was the biggest reason why I think they pursued path of immigration to U.S. We settled in, yes, briefly in Hawaii, but mainly in San Francisco Bay Area.
mhm. Certainly, JC, I did not know that about your
Mm.
mom, but what a defining moment for you in
Mm-hmm.
your life to have her say, "We're gonna move to America where you're free to worship Jesus," because your life is different because of that decision for sure.
Exactly, for sure.
Well, you went on to UC Berkeley to pursue this degree in molecular cell biology because your parents wanted you to be a doctor. Is that who inspired you? I mean, were you thinking that you were going to follow this path that your mom had prayed for? Is that what you originally thought?
Like any, I don't want to say any, but many of East Asian kids, especially son, I guess. Your mom plays a humongous role in every decision you make. It's not the case anymore, I hear, but hey, back in my day, it wasn't even church that was telling you to obey your parents. It was church plus the Bible plus Asian culture that says you got to honor your parents. And part of that, and of course, since that time, I don't think of honor in exactly that way, but the honor meant you do everything that your mom or dad tells you to do. What you major in college, what do you do with your life, and so on and so forth. So putting parents above all else, which is really, really dangerous, when you read the Bible. And yet I didn't know any better. So I wanted to be a good kid. So I told myself, yeah, I got to be a physician one day. So I studied, cell biology in college, taking MCATs and stuff like that.
Oh my goodness. And I know you said you were really good at math. You were good
Mm.
at math, you were good at the sciences. But wow, I mean, did your academic journey take a turn? Because you went to school for that, but then you went on to get an master's of divinity, theology, intellectual history, and then I think you went on to get a doctorate in intellectual history. I mean, what was the pivot there, Jay, to do that? And what did your mom and dad say when you told them what you wanted to do?
Well, my dad, when he heard that in the middle of college or towards the end of college, when I told my parents, I believe that God is wanting me to go to seminary school and pursue this becoming a pastor. My dad, who was also a pastor, a Presbyterian pastor, he was very supportive, but he couldn't openly support me because of Mom, of course, his wife, who was adamant that Jesus would never do such thing to her, after all these years of following her, right? And so she said, you know what, I got to go talk to Jesus. Give me a week. So she fasts and prays. I mean, who does that, right? For her son wanting to pursue ministry. Well, she did. She said, I got to have a one-to-one talk with Jesus. And she comes back and she goes, hey, son, listen up. So Jesus and I made a deal. All right. So here's the deal. So go to medical school, become a doctor, and then I'll let you go do mission field. So medical missionary is now the new deal. And to that, I think almost first time in my life, I made a very strong stance against what my mom's opinion of my life should be. I said, Mom, you raised me to be a Christian. I got to follow God. This is what I do. And in part because of you, I want to follow Jesus. I want to follow God with all my heart. And I want to give the best of what I have to God, not what's left of me. And whether you like it or not, I'd like to go to seminary and pursue this path because I believe God laid that on my heart. And Mom, can I follow God instead of what you're telling me to do? And she cried and cried. I mean, have you seen your mom just cry and just broke down? But thankfully, she loved the Lord as well. And she turned around. It was a fast turnaround, actually, a few days afterwards. She didn't talk to me for a few days. And she comes back and says, you know what? I think you got to obey God. And so she's been supportive ever since then. So I give Mom a lot of credit.
That's wonderful. Oh my goodness. I love that story. Well, you've lived in a lot of different places. Jay, we've already talked Seoul, Korea, San Francisco, Hawaii, New York. You've been to over 40 different countries. How has all of that contributed to your world view? I mean, you call yourself a bridge maker among diverse cultural groups. And I'm sure that that's really informed even your leadership style and how you approach even what you're doing today with your executive coaching. But, talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes. Even immigrant experience gives you a unique window to see the world because you are from shall we say East, right? One of the, one of the countries that you would think of, China, so East Asians, Korea is part of that community, and you see the world certain way, right? More holistic, yin and yang. I mean, you just feel that's the cultural milieu of East Asia. Honor, and all of that. Hierarchy, rigidity, collective thinking, and all of that. That becomes the norm. And then you come to United States, land of the free thinking, no more not stepping on your teacher's shadows because you got to honor them. We honor people differently here. We honor people by listening to them. Right to vote, voice your opinion. Creativity is very much loved here. And so you begin to realize, things are right here and the way it is run here. I mean, there's some norms that are considered great here, but so is over there, right? And so you begin to realize, when there's a difference, it doesn't mean one is necessarily wrong. It could be wrong, but not necessarily so. Just because there's a difference in thought or perspective or worldview, it doesn't mean one of them is wrong or both are right or both are wrong. You have to ask deeper questions. So at a very young age, I began to not immediately jump to whatever I'm uncomfortable, I'm just going to say it's wrong, to whenever I see a difference that I don't feel comfortable with, I'm going to lean in and ask appropriate question. Ask and then discover and then relate rather than judge, dismiss, and move on, right? So that's the kind of habit that was developed in me at a very young age, because I just knew that, the people in the East perceive the medicine a certain way. People in the West see a certain way. Is more medicine better, or prescriptive, or prescription better, or kind of a holistic care of your body, right? Better. Who knows, right? The debate is still going, but do we have to choose one? Is there strength in both, right? So
I love that. I think that's such a great formula. I'm going to repeat that. Ask, discover, and relate.
Not the other way around, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it. That is so unique. I really like that. Ask, discover, relate. So, that's so good. Well, are there any experiences from one of the 40 countries that you've traveled to, Jae, that really significantly impacted even your perspective on leadership?
I see. I found, there could be many examples, but I found that the best leaders, whether they're in any culture, right? Any culture, it may look a little different, because tribal leader in Senegal is a little bit different than a leader in the community in Russia. Is very different than North Korean refugees living in China, for example. They all look very different in the cursory look, but if you seek the heart of the matter, what happens is that you look a little deeper, and they are great leaders in every culture is looking for and deliberately seeking the heart of the matter. They're seeking a simple question like, what's the essence of this? What's the substance behind all this mess? What's the spirit of the law? Instead of just the letter of the law. So they're digging deeper, and they have this ability to see the heart of the matter rather than just the surface. And I think that that's something that I've witnessed in all the places I visited around the world. It just looks a little bit different.
Yeah, but there are similarities. There are similarities.
More similarities than differences.
Yeah. We haven't traveled to 40 countries, but we have done some mission trips in some developing countries. And it was eye-opening for me, because when I realized, yes, our situations were different. And there are definitely differences, cultural differences. But the thing that really was impressed on me, that the people there were very similar to us. They want good things for their children. They love their children. They would do anything for there's so many similarities.
Yeah.
They want to do better in life.
Yes.
So
yeah.
I think those are the things that if we can focus on those things, right, and look for the similarities, right? It can really, truly unite us more than sometimes looking at the diversity piece.
That's right. So important. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the human. The human. What makes us human? So
yeah.
So you've pastored you went on to be a pastor. You did that for 20 years. And I think, and you can tell me more about this, but you pastored one of the largest churches in South Korea. In fact, I think you were over 200 pastors. You were
I was in a team.
Over 200 pastors.
There are many, many large churches around in Asia, especially, just because the cities are compact and people can get around. It would be, 100,000 member church there would be likened to 10,000 people here, just because people all travel by car, and you just can't draw that many people to these churches. But yeah, it was a interesting experience of I've served as part of a team, um, small churches that were 40, 50 member churches. The whole body is about 30, 40 members, to 100 member church, 500, 1,000, 20,000, 85,000. But what really gets me going is that Christ loves all churches, and healthier is better, not certain size. You can be healthy and not healthy in any size of church. I've seen, I think,
Good point.
all examples. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What was the church that you served at about 85,000 members, or was it more than that?
Yeah, no, it was about
It was
85,000
about
members.
85,000 members, right?
Yeah.
Large church. Yeah, that's such a great point. It's more important about the health of the church rather than the size. And you can be a 50 member church and be healthier, maybe, right? Than the larger.
Or unhealthy.
Yeah,
You know
either
what I
one.
mean? Smaller
Yeah.
doesn't mean healthier
Right.
either. And it's incredible how we have that sometimes kind of a fixed kind of idea of a size of a church. I think Jesus probably would look at all of our churches and kind of measure it very differently. It's certainly, I don't think the number is the end all, the measurement, right? So.
Well, I know that you moved to St. Louis in 2019, but you were in Korea, and then you decided to move to Korea. You were there for a long time and then ended up moving back to the States. And I just want you to tell me real quickly about where you moved to, because you and I have some commonality there. And then we need to take a quick break and we'll come right back. But where did you move to when you moved back, Jay?
It was to Lexington, Kentucky.
Right.
And yeah, I stayed there for 6 months.
Yeah. And Greg and I grew up in Western Kentucky in Paducah. So that's
Gotcha.
where we were born and raised, went to school, and were recruited here to work for McDonnell Douglas right out of college. But I listened to something that you said, and I'd love for you just to talk about that experience. You said that you went from 150 miles an hour to 10 miles an hour.
Yeah.
What was the difference that you saw, and what did that time, because I think at that time, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, Jay, but I think at that time you were experiencing some burnout, and it was a healing time for you just to have this little bit of a slower pace. Can you just kind of describe your experience when you were in Kentucky for that 6 months?
Yeah, Kentucky doesn't have high rises, it's not
Right.
filled with blocks and blocks of concrete. It's got so much green. And on Sundays, weekends would be busiest time of life for me. But in Kentucky, I just attended a church service and enjoyed conversations a little bit, and then would come home and mow the lawn of next door neighbor. It was such a pace of life that was never really, I never allowed that to myself. Sabbath, where I'm sitting there just drinking coffee with a friend, or without agenda, checking the boxes, just fully being present with my family, cooking for my kids. I just never done that for duration of my kids' lives. And so it was such a gift. To this day, my wife and I say, those 6 months in Kentucky were probably the most heavenly tasting moments of our lives. Even though I was reeling from lots of pain and sorrow and repentance and heartache, even so, I was basking in God's love in those 6 months.
I love it. I love what you just said. That's just so beautiful. But just for our listeners who have not been to Kentucky, go. And especially go to like the Lexington area where there's the horse farms and calumet farms and beautiful, beautiful green pastures and white picket fences. And yes, I could not agree more. Well, Jay, we need to take a really quick break, and then we'll be right back on the Something Extra podcast.
Hey there. In a challenging business climate like this, savvy leaders look to technology to find an edge. This can mean the difference between staying ahead of the curve or playing catch-up. It's time to collaborate with the highly skilled experts at Technology Partners. Our team of technologists draws upon decades of experience for your project, with each bringing a passion for solving problems and a track record of success. How can we help you overcome your biggest technology challenges? Visit technologypartners.net to book a free consultation with one of our leaders.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Something Extra podcast with my friend Jae Chung. We've been just having a wonderful discussion here, but Jae, I would love for you to tell our listeners a little bit what precipitated that move, because you did move here in 2019. What precipitated the move from New York to St. Louis in 2019?
A lot happened, but the heart of the matter is that I lost kind of sight of what's truly important, vital to me. It's surprising, right? Because I was serving church. I was, from the looks of it, I was playing the part, preaching constantly, doing Bible studies, helping people out. Helping to build nonprofits. What's wrong with that? Well, what's wrong with it is that I lost the sight of my family. I lost sight of actually talking to God and reading His Word when I'm not required to prepare for preaching, for example. So everything became more of a thoughtless habit and not an intentional, thoughtful endeavor. And I think when Jesus says, God says, love the Lord with all your heart and might and soul, that's not what He meant. Not just doing the right things so that you can post it on somewhere, but are you really pursuing me? And I didn't. The burnout actually just devastated my family. And I could not, I just felt so distant from God. And so to my friends, I said, I need to get back to God. I need to become Christian. I just want to be a child of God. The times I spent praying in the basement of that house that I was renting in Kentucky, those were precious moments. I would wake up in the early morning hours and I would just cry out to God. And there was the house that I was renting, the owner was Christian, and he had a little cross in the basement. And next to it was a drawing of, I don't know if you've ever seen this, drawing of Jesus laughing. And it was framed and set right there. At first, because I was in so much pain and agony, woe was me, right? So I was looking at that and go, what are you laughing about, Jesus? I'm in so much pain. I thought I was doing all the right thing, but my life is all mess and I'm lost, and days turned to weeks. And then that same picture, meant something very differently for me. It was as if God was telling me, Jae, you're fine. Nothing you've done for me impresses me. Nothing you will ever do is going to shock me, or disappoint me. You are completely loved, just as you are. So come, and so we're fine. We're fine. And so I think that's what saved me, just crying out to God in that basement.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit more, Jae, because there may be people that are listening that are burned out. They don't recognize or they sometimes even admitting it to yourself, right? Can be hard because you just keep going every day, just keep doing and pushing and pushing. What would you say to that person that kind of has some angst in their spirit and just know that there's something not right? What would you say to them?
If that person was sitting right in front of me, I would say, hey, brother, hey, sister, I've been there where fear, shame, and guilt is literally eating my soul into pieces, ripping it apart. But will you surrender that fear, shame, and guilt to God, who loves you completely? Only when you invite this God into your heart completely will you be able to overcome those fear, shame, and guilt that will constantly drive you to destruction, really. Enemy comes to destroy us, right? And he's not dumb. And so he's going to use all kinds of tactics.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at you. You call yourself pastor. You call yourself this and that. You're no good. You're already tainted. You're never going to be loved by God. So as long as we buy into that lie, we're never going to get up. Woe is me is going to be basically the last verse you're going to sing. But that's not what Christ did for us on the cross. He defeated that. And so I would say it's normal, it's human to feel defeated by fear, shame, and guilt. But it is also God's will for you to hold on to the hand of God that'll rescue you from that lie and restore you to be the child of God that is forever loved, without any condition, completely loved. And your value is in the eyes of God, estimated by God. So, so that's what happened. For 3-4 months, I would pray, and God would remind me again. But and know this: sometimes it takes more than one reminder, to really convince your heart. It's repeated bombardment of God's love in my heart that changed me. It wasn't my willpower. I don't think it was even me trying to be smart about it. There's no analysis that's going to get you out of that slump, that place of darkness. Only God's light, only God's hand, mercy, grace is going to save you. So cry out to that. It may take time.
I almost feel like, because there are so many voices in our world and there's so much noise, Jay. I mean, I feel like that is why every day we have to spend that time in communion, so we can be reminded of who we are in Him. And something else that you said that I think, and myself included, we can fall into this trap of thinking, I do more for you, God. I'll do more for you. And and like you said before, I mean, there's nothing we can do or not do, right? I mean, it's really, He just wants to have this relationship with us, really. I mean, the doing comes out of the relationship, really, because then we want to serve, right? Because of this relationship and this love relationship that we have with Him. So that is so beautiful. Well, I want to ask you about this. You're the managing partner of Bespoke Compass. Tell us about this business. You're an executive coach. Where did the name come from? First of all, I'm sure there's a story behind the name.
Well, I've always asked, what is a good life? How do we navigate this complex thing called life on this side of heaven? And Compass usually is a tool that, ageless tool that we use to kind of, see the direction a little bit, orient ourselves to the true north, right? And then bespoke, because it's custom made. I believe that what works for person A may not work for person B. We try to kind of standardize everything, right? This is the standard, to which you should arrive. But God never really treats us that way. He's like a bespoke tailor that says, let me measure you. Let me see your limitation, which can be leveraged too. And so I feel like God is a bespoke tailor in our lives, giving us a bespoke compass just for us. So that's kind of the desire and the idea behind that name.
Yeah, I know you've been through so much, and I know your passion is to help other people live a fulfilled life. And so I really do love that. I've got so many other questions, but I know we're kind of running out of time. Let me ask you this question, because this might help our listeners too. And then we're going to talk a lot about something extra. But Jay, how do you personally learn? And are there any good podcasts besides Something Extra that you listen to? Or any good books that you would recommend to our listeners? I mean, are there, besides, I think I was reading last night, I think there have been 5 billion copies of the Bible So besides the Bible being
Yes,
the
yes.
best book ever read, right? I mean, are there some things that you would recommend to our listeners that might help them on their journey?
Right, right. How about this? Rather than talking about a particular book, because I'm a little bit of an anomaly in that I believe that classics matter, even though it's outdated. People might say because it doesn't make it to it's not good enough for Instagram or some
Mhm.
reel, right? It's not attractive. It's not TikTok material, and it's hard to read. The attention span has dwindled down to about 8 seconds now. And so for anybody to say, let's read a novel together, what a weird idea, right? Why would I
Right.
waste 4 hours sitting in one place reading something that somebody has written? So counterintuitively, in the day of I would say I love reading novels. I love reading very thoughtful books that's been written in 100 years ago, 50 years ago, and so forth. And so that's the kind of a oddball that I am. In
Yeah.
fact, if you ask my kids, 3 kids, they will tell you how much I value actually reading their textbooks. I'm still reading I don't know, magazines about latest discovery in biochemistry. I'd done that last
Awesome.
week, so it's kind of weird. But I
Mhm.
would say read widely and read deeply
Mhm.
instead of just a soundbite. In the days of AI and lack of attention span, I would ask anyone who wants to experience life in a deeper and richer way to do the hard work of getting a book that's pretty thick and sitting there read for an hour. I mean, I
Mhm.
cannot believe that's a challenge, but it is a thing. I've met people that say, I've never read a book, a single book, front to back, you know?
Mhm.
And if it's not like a practical book, people don't read it.
Mhm. We've
I would,
got to grow though as leaders. We've got to grow. We got to grow for the people that we lead, right? And so
yes.
whether it's listening, I mean, a lot of people enjoy listening, but yeah, we've got to continually be trying to see how we can grow. I mean, like I said, the Bible is the most important book I believe that one person could ever read, and you need to spend a lot of time there.
Mm,
So,
mm,
but we also learn from each other, don't we, Jay? I mean, I feel like, and that's for me, that is what I've loved so much about the Something Extra podcast
mhm.
is I have my whole career I've
Yeah.
enjoyed just sitting down with people and hearing their stories and learning from people. And so now with the podcast, the way that I look at that is like I'm sitting down with you and you're sharing amazing stories and perspectives and lessons that you've learned along the way. And now we're going to be able to share it with others when this gets published. So
Mhm.
I think that that's more important, whether it's reading or whatever. You just see what you can do. I don't know if you know the name Zig Ziglar, but
Mhm.
Tom Ziglar was on the podcast probably a year ago, and he said something that I loved at the end. He said, just every day, he took something extra. He took the term something extra. He goes, every day, try to learn a little something extra.
Mm.
And it's an incremental change,
Yeah.
right? And so I told his I said, "Now I'm stealing that." And he said, "It's okay.
I
Go ahead and steal it."
love it.
Um, but do you have let me ask you this, and then we're gonna talk about something extra. Do you have a morning routine, Jay? What's your morning routine look like?
Yeah, my morning routine is almost similar every day. So hence routine. I get up and I spend some time just moving my body in my bed and in prayer. I go, thanks for this body, this breath. So I kind of wake up my body um, very slowly. And I feel like I'm honoring God by recognizing that I'm given this chance to live in this body.
Mhm.
And so I don't pop out of bed and I slowly get out of bed. And I let my whole body kind of wake up little by little. And then usually sit there and there's a desk in my bedroom where I sit and read a little scripture of Bible. I just want to let my brain and my body just read from God's word and let it sit there and let it filter the rest of the day. And so I have an app too, but I kind of like opening up my Bible. So I do that. It's always sitting there anyway. It's very convenient. It's faster than turning on the phone. The other reason is I don't want to look at the phone for the first hour for as much as possible. And so I might glance at it to see if there's any emergency phone call or something from my mom or dad. I mean, I don't want to miss that.
Right.
But I don't actually open it and check anything or see anything or listen to anything, even podcast. No matter how good it is, I don't listen to that first. And then I go grab a cup of coffee and try to spend morning routine with my kids, because they're going home, going to school, from home and so on. So spend time with my wife, just check in, hello, hi, good morning. And so set the tone for my household. And this is what I try to say. So I wake up my body, spend some time with the Lord in prayer and Bible, very short, probably 5 minutes. And then I go to hit my restroom real quick, and then I go downstairs and just spend time with my family. Yeah, my family.
I love it.
Turning on the music and so on. Yeah, that's my morning routine.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, let's talk about something extra. So, Jae, what do you believe is something extra that every leader needs? And I think you have two different perspectives. And I'd love for you to tell me what that something extra is, and then dig into that a little bit deeper, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I have a couple for you. It's related. One is seek the heart of the matter. Once in a while, pause and just seek the heart of the matter. What that means is there's always a why behind every what, I feel. So remember what I said about ask, discover, relate? Do that with issues. Like, how does a house, everybody can own a house if they really were lucky enough to earn some money and buy it. But not every house can just become a home. It takes intentional, thoughtful engagement, like prayer and values, conversations, open, honest, loving gaze. That's what makes home, right? Memories make home. Same thing with knowledge. What's the heart of the matter? Knowledge, is it just information? No, it's more than that. If you really think about it, true knowledge is understanding, which is very transferable knowledge, so that you can take that and contextualize in different endeavors. So when I got into habit of seeking the heart of the matter in different issues, I was able to not just be obedient because I have to, but I became someone who was keen about integrity, like obeying God even when nobody's looking at me, right? Exercise can be simple routines of sets and reps, or it could be pursuit of wholeness, true health, holistic look at your body, how you wake up your body. So get in the habit of seeking the heart of the matter so you can take good to better and better to best, Look at the spirit of the law instead of just the letter of the law, I suppose. The other side that you can do with humans or relationship is see beyond the surface, because there's always much more than meets the eye. How many times have you been misunderstood because they didn't take the time to hear the whole story? Well, we can be doing the same thing to others when we just look at the surface. So do a deeper dive into like iceberg, because every human is an iceberg.
Right.
Everyone is fighting a battle that we have no idea about. So be open, patient, and gracious. Not every encounter, you're human. But if you're a leader, pause and intentionally try to see beyond the surface. One great exercise I did this past Christmas, this season, is that we usually do as a family like a puzzle. And this time it was a Times Square like area of people skating, ice skating, right, in New York. There were like 100 people ice skating. And we did this puzzle piece. And at the end, my son kind of said, I wonder how this person got here. One of the little person skating there. And then we all start to talk about, why don't we do this? Let's tell a story. Let's create a story, the backstory behind why this couple's smiling here, why that person's performing music there. Well, anyways, everybody has a backstory, right? If we take the time to see beyond the surface, then I think the world becomes a better place.
That's so good. I love it. Well, Jay, this has been so much fun. I appreciate you so much. I appreciate you sharing your wisdom. I know that it's going to help our listeners, and I just appreciate who you are. So thank you for
Thank
being
you.
my friend.
Thank you. Thank you for being in my life.
Thank you for listening to today's show. Something Extra with Lisa Nichols is a Technology Partners production. Copyright Technology Partners, Inc., 2019. For show notes or to reach Lisa, visit tpi.co/podcast. Don't forget to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you listen.